Good afternoon, good evening traders. It is Sunday the 11th of July 2021, and of course tonight we've got the final of the EUROCHF, and we've got that's England against Italy, so it's going to be very interesting to see how that plays out, and yes, may the best team win. Having a look at the markets this week, I'm going to quickly have a look at the news and just see what kind of major stuff is potentially heading our way this week. Not really too much. I would say with the Royal Bank of New Zealand, rate statement can often cause a bit of a spike, and seeing as pound Aussie and maybe, pound Kiwi and maybe Euro Kiwi would be sitting on my watch list this week for trades to the long side, that would make me cautious. Almost always cause a bit of a spike there, and that'll be overnight in those positions. And I guess Bank of Canada rate statement, possibly a little bit of that. Not really a lot here that really concerns me too much. And so no, that's it. Nothing that I'm really going to be, other than any intraday trading potentially on much lower time frames. Otherwise, this looks absolutely fine. Starting off with the US dollar index. So one of the things I noticed this week is we are sort of encountering a bit of difficulty here around that 92.75 level. We should really have had a bit of a free run up to 93, and we've knocked all the way back down to almost close to 92. So I do think the market's going to want to test 92 this week for support. Might likely find it, but it's not really a good sign. If the market is this volatile at the moment, it does imply that we could be at the beginning of continued kind of range-like behavior. So I'm going to be extra cautious this week, especially on trading any of the majors. And so really my expectation here is to see it potentially touch 92 and then potentially take another run at 93. Just looking at the weekly candle, last week's weekly candle, it's just a little bit on the bearish side, but we still would have to get to the other side of 92 for me to really kind of take that seriously. And also this monthly setup is much more bullish than it is bearish. So I'm still leaning towards the side that the dollar is now going to want to head a little bit higher. And so that just means this week there could be a bit of whipsawing, which is obviously not ideal. Having a look at euro against the US dollar, this looks particularly bullish. All right, so to me this makes sense. It's going to want to head a little bit higher. That will then potentially knock the dollar a little bit lower. So here we've got a little bit of a bullish candle. It's not as, it's almost a little bit indecision, very small body there. But yeah, holding above this 1.1850 60 level. And also here within the monthly, looking a little bit more bullish. So my expectation there is to look for possibly, if I do see some good setups intraday, is to trade a little bit to the upside. Then having a look at sterling. So cable here producing a high low, high high. That's now officially in an uptrend on the daily, looking a little bit more bullish on that weekly, and certainly looking bullish on the monthly. So for me, yes, I like the idea of this potentially working its way up to 1.4. Again, the swings and roundabouts, it's not looking that, there's definitely the possibility of range-like behavior this week. But right now, everything is at the starting blocks is looking more bullish against the US dollar than bearish. Australian dollar against the US dollar here as well, producing a bullish candle here. We've got that retracement, then move down a bullish recovery as well, and then another move at a bullish candle. Lots of buyers in this area, but that weekly not looking necessarily as strong. Might find some strong resistance at that 0.75 level, and of course really struggled to get past this level of resistance on the monthly. So moves to the downside on this actually make more sense to me. So what I might do here is look and see within Monday or Tuesday any bearish setups if potentially wants to find if it's finding resistance up against the 75 level, and or maybe additional pivot levels or Fibonacci levels that it might actually start to head a little bit lower. Kiwi dollar against US dollar, again, lots of kind of strong support in this area. Really kind of outside but indecision candle, not great. So not offering too much clarity there. Looking here at dollar yen, getting knocked all the way back down. And then finding support where it is here. Again, that weekly to me still looking more bullish than bearish. I want to see if it can recover from that. But what I do like about this from a monthly perspective, so this is potential range-like behavior. Look at that bearish candle so far. We're only in the first third of the month, but this continues to look bearish. Might be a sign that this is potentially going to head down to the bottom of the range. And dollar yen does often do its own thing, but that weekly looks a little bit more bullish than bearish once again. Dollar Swissy here, so it's finding some strong resistance here. No real clear trend. Technically it is in a downtrend, lower high, lower low, but overall this is still very much range bound, looking quite bearish on the weekly, and actually has an uptrend on the monthly. So just mixed signals, just exercising, just a clear signal to exercise some caution. Now, dollar CAD, I like that pullback down into these previous highs. I do want to see it get through that 1.25 level, so I'd like to see it take another run at that potentially and get back over it. It's in an uptrend on the daily. Again, just a lot of these are not very clear patterns. We've made some good money over the last couple of weeks because, you know, the dollar signaled where it wanted to go. The euro did. There were a lot of great trades on the majors. Fantastic. So some good returns there. But this time around, it's done a bit of a move, and now it's trying to decide what it wants to do next. So in terms of currencies of interest to me this coming week, Euro, Swissy, some of the Swissy pairs are looking quite nice and weak. I do like the fact that it's broken down a little bit lower. So therefore what I want to see is, do we get some resistance as we pull back? If we do come back up into these areas, do I find some good strong resistance, and does it potentially then do another leg down? So that's a possibility. Deep retracement here, so often usually if it's a deep retracement here, but at the same time also a really big move to the downside, and so I'll have to see if it finds some resistance in those areas and then possibly moves to the downside. Aussie Swissy, similar to that as well. Really want to see if it comes back up potentially into this area here, into this market structure here, and find some strong resistance. There might be some continuation opportunities to the downside. I am just noting a little bit of bullish divergence here, but overall it's more bearish on that weekly. It has closed, you know, effectively below that 68.50 level, and so I want to see if it can stay below that. So there might be some shorting opportunities there. Pound CAD, actually quite like the look of this to the upside. So the weekly here, we've got a nice uptrend, very strong bullish, almost engulfing candle there. We are within a range on the monthly. It's a bit of a mess there, but I do like the look of this. Any pullbacks into these market structures, these previous highs, the top of this range, could be potential buy opportunities there. And the same with Pound Aussie. Been wanting this to push through a little bit higher. That's a very nice monthly bullish candle so far, and I do like the fact that it's managed to break its way and breach this 1.85 resistance area. So if it could continue to do that, any nice pullbacks into these areas, into previous market highs, could be nice buying opportunities for me. And that's really it. So there's not a lot right now in terms of currencies, expectations with currencies. Not a lot of really safe, obvious, you know, really good deals out there. So at the moment, I'm waiting for a bit of clarity on the dollar, whether it weakens at first and then then recovers, or whether it just continues to be a bit of a hot mess. And the same for the other currency pairs on the list over there. So now moving on to the precious metals, having a look at gold. So gold, I like this. It's starting to look more and more bullish. Not a lot of buyers in this area. And that really doesn't bode well for it. You know, it's not like it's able to just resume a longer term move to the upside. It's been giving a lot of mixed signals anyway. But I just note the current bullish candle here. I want to see us back above that 1800 level. If we do continue to climb a little bit higher, then I'll start to take into account, or certainly consider, pullbacks for intraday trading back into previous highs. Even if we do come back down below that 1800 level, I might still be looking for opportunities to finish us for the week, hopefully back above this 1.8. I'm very keen for it to continue, obviously, to resume to the kind of longer term bullish uptrend. But overall, that is very much in question now. And so what could and what is most likely on the table now is that we get range-like behavior for gold for a while, and this doesn't really play out much. So what I really am, just to come back to it, is looking for potential buying opportunities this week. If suddenly there's a big drop to the downside similar to this, then I'll start setting up for shorts in case it comes back up and finds resistance against any of these market structures over here. Platinum, looking quite good to me. I like the fact that we've got a series of high lows here. A break above this previous high would start to put it into a nice solid uptrend, and then pullbacks into those levels of resistance to find support would be buying opportunities for me. And that would also start to make that monthly look more and more bullish, and therefore that would be a nice retest of this previous level of resistance and a continuation to the upside. So platinum looking quite decent to me, and copper, very similar. Just a mess over here. This is just obviously incredibly dangerous for intraday trading. But overall, I do like the idea of it being a potentially kind of starting to move back up to the upside. We'll see. And so for me to feel a little bit more confident or happy with that, I would then want to see it break outside of this range, break clearly out, and then potentially pullbacks looking for buys in that case. And any moves to the downside just immediately moves it off that list. Then I start to become more bearish on it. But my first plan A in this is moves to the upside. Okay, now taking a look at crude oils. Starting off with West Texas Intermediate. Okay, so this has had a good long run up here. It's got a kind of bearish indecision candle here, struggling up at that 75 level. It's had a bit of a knockback, obviously overdue at some point for a deeper correction, even if on no other time frame other than the weekly, a nice pullback into the moving averages. And so for me, this is a great pullback on the daily, a bit of a kind of just a correction And so yes, possibly I might look for buys again to the upside, but it also does signal a bit of exhaustion on the weekly, and certainly we are at a significant level here. So caution again on that as well. Having a look at Brent crude, this had a nice little pullback testing support on that 74 level, and again this is what I want to see here. Is it able to continue, or is there now potentially a lower high and a break and a bit more of a deeper correction on that weekly basis? So interesting just to see a little bit more kind of on in terms of crude oils, a little bit more of potential danger in terms of trading for intraday trading this coming week, where yes, overall I'd still like to be bullish on it, but it's starting to show a little bit of a change on its weekly temperament, let's call it that. And we had, we've broken this previous uptrend, and therefore it just kind of means I might have to watch a little bit from the sidelines before it becomes clear whether it's going to have a deeper correction or whether it's going to make it back or get back into climbing to the upside. Now, moving on to the global indices, starting off with the Dow. Overall, really strong recovery. We're still almost certainly battling with a strong band of resistance over here. So I'm just going to highlight that and keep it in mind as we approach 35,000, which is our next kind of really major level that weekly. Nice strong recovery, looking nice and bullish here, but it hasn't really broken new ground, and that's kind of the story, is that monthly's had a good run, be lovely to have a nice correction, a healthy correction here. We're definitely seeing some wobbling here, which we spoke about a couple of weeks ago, and it isn't really breaking new ground. Okay, so the issue for me with this, and it'll probably repeat itself in other areas, is that I don't really feel safe taking trades unless once we get past it. So I want to see us break new ground here so that I can start going, okay, cool, we're now going on to new highs, and I can start looking for fresh opportunities. And while we're right next to it here, because this is clearly strong resistance, there's not a lot of profit to be made on short, brief trades to the upside here, and the risk of it getting knocked back or some kind of a correction could mean actually that this week might show opportunities to the downside. So where I'd be looking for that is to see if there's a failure, more kind of rejections of price action at these levels, starting to break these lows, potentially the candle starting to get a lot bigger. And that means that if that is the case, then intraday throughout, and certainly by the end of this coming week, there'll be moves, big moves to the downside. Alternatively, if we do manage to break through, then I'd like to see price, then I'd start obviously be looking for brief trades to the upside. But yes, the very fact that we're all looking super bullish, but just failing to break new ground is not really encouraging, obviously. Let's compare it to the S&P. I mean, this has just broken through its recent resistance, coming back, bit of a dip there, looking super bullish. Slightly different story in that weekly chart. I mean, they are still getting weekly time frames, still getting smaller. Each of these candles getting progressively smaller. And this weekly looks fantastic. That looks great. But again, also similar to a hanging man in terms of shape up there, starting to show a little bit of exhaustion, coming up into a big round number. So again, I will exercise some caution on that, but I do prefer the S&P over the Dow. Then having a look at the NASDAQ as well, also over the Dow. So usually we had a period where early in the year and last year where the NASDAQ was forging ahead and everybody else was failing to catch up, and then the NASDAQ took a bit of a breather. Now we've kind of seemed to have come full circle, and it's just forging ahead again. Okay, so for me, again, caution as we head up into massively, this is a big round number, certainly psychologically. So caution there. Any big drops, if I do see any divergence starting to creep in on the 4-hour time frame, that's really where a lot of my attention is going to be. How does price react in the coming days? And certainly exercising a lot of caution there. Just not a great potential. I need us to have a deeper correction to then give us room to run to the upside. But because we've been running on multiple time frames, it just becomes incredibly risky for me, at least, to take any positions here until we have a bit of a correction. Looking at the Russell 2000, again, this is still pretty much range bound, so I'm just going to extend that out a little bit. We're still within that area. You can see it here on that weekly chart, struggling to get past that level of resistance, and certainly here on the monthly. If nothing else, it's consolidating here, so there's always two ways in which the market can take a bit of a breather, recoup some of its energy that it spent. Is one, of course, it can have a correction to the downside, and then it just recovers that energy in one big go. Or alternatively, it treads water. All right, treads water until usually what happens is fair value catches up with it, and then it's ready to go again. This isn't there yet. Moving averages haven't really caught up with it yet, and the other markets are looking like they might also take a bit of a breather. So this for me is not really on my list of charts that I want to get involved with for the same reasons as I've spoken about on the previous charts. Okay, even here looking at the FTSE. All right, so FTSE again, actually I love the fact that the non-US markets so far are looking quite bullish and pushing up their highs. But you can see here again also the candles getting progressively smaller, so less and less of a move. And by the way, kind of the magic thing about small candles is they usually precede a big move, whether it's to the upside or the downside. It isn't really, again, it hints at pressure building up. So again, caution for the same reason. Just want to have a look at these. DAX actually managing to recover from this little bit of a wobble, get back up above that, but immediately, so strong resistance here and almost immediately encountering strong resistance here again. Similar types of candle shapes, very bullish, but not breaking any new ground. And again, also here, indecision, spinning tops, hanging mans, all kinds of different things here, which can signal the end of a move, close to a big round number. So it's not, what I'm not saying here is that I'm expecting any kind of massive crash or anything. I'm saying that certainly a deeper correction by the end of the week is certainly a possibility. And actually now looking at them, they're all kind of running right at the end of the tracks. And so therefore, this is something I would keep in mind. It means that I'm probably going to spend a little bit more time watching that oil, as I said. So I don't mean to sound negative or that I'm not really kind of seeing, I'm not coming from a place of abundance, so to speak, in terms of opportunities. Throughout the week, it might suddenly start moving and then the markets, do what they do. There's a bit of a correction. Suddenly it becomes bullish and it recovers by the end of the week. That's the kind of scenario that could happen. And then all of a sudden there are opportunities. But right now I'm seeing a lot of signs that the markets are kind of have done moves, are spent, or are undecided. And I suppose knowing when to do nothing is probably just as important. And we've had the last couple of weeks have been phenomenal in terms of returns. So knowing when to kind of take a bit of a breather is probably a good thing. Again, here almost this move up, pull back, knock back, then attempt again, then a knock down. Just signs of kind of the market tripping up. And we just had it recently. So we had it here, and again, we had it here a couple of weeks later. So all of this just means just caution for me. I really want to see if we do manage to have a strong finish or if we start to head low. The Nikkei here really still not able to keep up with the rest of them, starting to push down a little bit. But the beauty of this one is it has actually managed to come back, had a bit of a nice correction back into its moving averages. And the last one, of course, being the ASX Australian one. This is coming back down to that 7.2 level. That was lovely. And so for me, here is what I'd be looking for over the next week. Potentially a nice, strong, bullish candle, which could signal buying opportunities for the week after next. So there we go. I'm just going to exercise some caution here. Keep an eye on these. Not actively expecting any opportunities to happen. If they do, I'll be in and out relatively quickly. So that being said, let me go and have a look at some of these stocks that have been on my list. These are stocks of interest. And so let's just see how they're doing. I mean, for example, here's Amex doing beautifully, not a problem. Again, the same, I worry that to myself at least that I sound like a stuck record, but that these monthlies are just running parallel. But overall, this kind of behavior, for one thing, is very institutional. There's no doubt just kind of scheduled buying of these because they're just so orderly. And the angle of it is so steady that it just kind of, and also this weekly, it's just very organized growth. And usually this is, I don't think it's a bad thing. But, in the dailies and the weeklies look incredible. The monthlies have just traveled very far away from true value. And so this is my concern, really. That's where that risk comes in. Doesn't mean that we couldn't keep going because, when you're in a bubble, you're in a bubble. It just happens until eventually till it bursts. But at the moment, again, these look great. There's not a lot of signs of weakness here. But again, it just means I'm extra cautious. However, overall, I like the look of this. I do think it looks relatively healthy, that monthly chart aside. Here we go. So this is one of the ones on my preferred list, ARC. Obviously, being a big fan of Cathy Woods. I also like the fact that there's been some strong recovery here. I want to see us break the previous month's high. Really would like to see that go. We've done pretty well here in terms of 130. I want to see us get back over that. And so we'll see how it goes this coming week. Berkshire Hathaway, that's lovely. Some strong support there, almost like a double bottom. It actually is a double bottom. Very nice bullish price action over here. But a bit of a move and a bearish candle here, potentially signaling that there's going to be a deeper correction down towards 250. So I want to see if that happens. One of the ways in which that could happen is simply that price encounters resistance here and produces a lower high, and then we subsequently fall through those levels. So we'll see how that goes. It is, again, weekly, daily and weekly are bullish. Monthly showing that potential weakness. So not a great place to be. You want all of them ideally to be looking nice and bullish. BP now starting to move lower, much lower. It's coming back up into these previous lows here. So let me just go ahead and just mark that as possible market structure. something that might be relevant this coming week. See if we can get back over that. And also there's potentially some resistance up there, but starting to look a lot more like a hot mess over there. And we've now performed or created or produced that swing high. So I want to see if we're going to start to head a little bit lower on that. Coca-Cola holding kind of where it is over here, finding some strong support, bullish candles on the weekly, on the previous highs here, so nice market structure there. That's certainly going to attempt to climb higher, and let's see how that goes. But it's also produced a swing high on the monthly. It's all of that kind of that issue with what we've got happening on the monthly versus what's going on the weekly and the daily. So for example here as well, Exxon move up, pull back, and then another little move up, not breaking into too much of a new high, then a pullback almost immediately, and then another move up just a little bit higher, and then pulling back again. Not signs of strength, not really making leaps and bounds compared to where it was doing here, which is part of that nice recovery. So again, much more cautious with that as we pull back. We've now broken these lows. We've got some strong resistance up here. Will we produce another move, another leg to the downside this week? General Motors. Okay, so yeah, again, now you can see a lot of buyers in these lower areas here, some resistance, no buyers above that, and certainly the market starting to head largely sideways. If you look at this going back to March, pretty much gone nowhere. Not, at least I don't think, giving much return in terms of that, or certainly not showing much signs of growth. So yeah, I think it's fair to say it's possible we could see some moves further down to the downside here. We'll see. That's a nice, that's almost a classic hanging man. And so that can potentially be a sign of exhaustion. Okay, Morgan Chase getting ready to do another, almost wants to go back into an uptrend. Again, signaling a bit of, this is an engulfing candle, and it also happens to be bearish with some buyers below that. So possibly here there's going to be a little bit of a head and shoulders if that's going to be the case, if we're going to start to break below these lows. I'll be keeping an eye on that. So it's more of a, there are times when I can see exhaustion, and I know, okay, this is definitely now going to this, like the odds, the probabilities of this, taking, crashing or correcting is very high. I'm not seeing that this week. I'm not saying it can't happen. I'm saying that the daily and weeklies are looking, you almost want to say too good to be true. They're all looking super nice and bullish, and those monthlies have wobbled, or the weeklies are starting to wobble. So in other words, it's, if I had to ask myself, what would a really nice, healthy chart look like? It wouldn't look like this. And that's where there's that problem. So again here, we have a nice move up, pull back, move up, and we haven't really gone anywhere. Okay, so again, that potential for a swing high. So I want to see if we have this failure, if we can do it. But again, that's a great example of a great bullish chart. The daily looks fine. NVIDIA, okay, this one had a really strong move this week, but now, certainly I would say it's in a good place to have a nice, healthy correction. Back down to 700 would be fantastic. Doesn't necessarily mean it on the monthly, but yeah, but overall I've been, this one as well as with ARC Innovation, these were the ones which for me are buying opportunities. Same with PayPal. These are just great ones. And they do look so much healthier. So if I look at this daily one, that looks great. The candles here look good. They're coming into previous highs. The monthlies don't look the same way. The candles just don't look the same. They look kind of full and bullish and relatively healthy. So Royal Mail. Okay, so Royal Mail having come back down, finding a little bit of resistance up there at that 600 level. And again, here is a very real possibility. We now have that swing high over doing a bit of a deeper correction. We'll see. There are lots of buyers, but at some point you just run out of buyers. And when I say there are lots of buyers, you can see that, price comes out, pushes back up again, comes back up here, pushes up here again, but it's still heading down. It's like failing as it runs out of buyers. So what I'll be looking for this week is to see if we do actually take another dip, if we produce another low on that. We'll see. Spider, okay, higher low on that. Did we break it? Yes, we broke it. So we've got that kind of almost potential uptrend on that. This again is a relatively nice bullish formation. I want to see if we can recover from that by starting to break these, especially breaking up the previous high this week. See if we can do that. Tesla. Right, so a while ago I spoke about possible areas where this could potentially find support if it did it in the lows down here. This is actually when I drew it in because I matched the edges of those moving averages. I said it could either kind of turn at the top here, or potentially if it did a deeper correction, potentially here on the lower one so far. And then I drew this arrow in when I was just looking to see if we could actually manage to do that. So we have done that. We've pulled back, we've produced some bullish candles. The moving averages have now reordered into at least a bullish formation on the daily. So that's going to be interesting for me this week. Can we break these previous highs and head back over that 700 level? We've had that treading water for a while, so there's a nice consolidation. We are pretty much back in line with fair value. So, you know, if this did have to climb higher, I'd be okay with that. I wouldn't have an issue with it. We still have kind of lower highs on the weekly, so I want to see what gets past that. But this week I'm optimistic. I want to see if we can make it and push back up over these levels. And finally on my list is Vanguard, looking great. Beautiful. Again, that weekly, okay, we've got similar price action here as well, where, you know, we can always find these near where markets that are topping out. We broke through this level, and we've pushed higher, pulled back, bullish candle, pushing higher. We're looking good. The momentum indicators are bullish. That's fantastic. Again, daily, weekly, looking extremely good and healthy. And that monthly, in terms of that kind of structure, looks okay, but it's been running. It's, you know, can't go forever. At some point, it's got to have a correction. And actually, we had this in, I think, in Trump's first term, like in his first, not in his first term, in his first year, where we had kind of 11 or 12, actually had as many as 14 months of just straight climbing before the market had its first correction. And so that we could be in a phase like that where maybe we're just getting a similar market reaction. So that's also very interesting to me. Overall, I'm seeing in amongst this, I'm seeing some that have that potential to keep going, and others that they might push up a little bit, but then if they were back down or haven't gone anywhere by the end of the week, they've gone up and then come back down, 2 steps forward, 1 step back. I also wouldn't be that surprised. So some I'm more bullish on. The ones that I've highlighted in green, I'm more bullish on than the ones I've highlighted, for example, in amber or red. Okay, so now moving on to the let's go and have a look at Treasuries to see how they're doing. They've actually started to climb to the upside, so that's looking good. Uptrends on the weekly. So this is the 10-year T-note. That's looking nice and bullish. Some definite possible buys, and one of the things that I spoke about was, yes, if the markets were, but you know, this is an old-fashioned approach. This is more of kind of Buffettology, where, you know, if we do look to see if there's a nice little inverse correlation between bonds and equities, and so if equities are, you know, money starts moving across to bonds, then it's possible we're going to see a bit of a dive in equities. So yeah, they're starting to climb to the upside, and some of the stocks are looking like a bit exhausted. So yeah, that could be a clue. You know, again, this is something I'll be keeping an eye on for the next few weeks to see if that continues to do that. So even here, look at the Euro bubble. We've got a nice confirmed uptrend on that weekly chart. We're starting to produce a nice little level of support here. We've got a nice solid uptrend on the daily. So again, I want to see us break these previous highs. And again, it would make sense if this week they continue to climb and there's just this move of money coming into the market. They're starting to look more bullish. And again here, the Eurobond as well. Nice uptrend there, breaking these previous highs. That's all very bullish. Want to see if it can continue. So pullbacks here, certainly into previous market structures, which puts me at the 173.75 level and the 173 level. Potential buying opportunities moves up to 175. So that's interesting. That's a nice shift that wasn't here a month ago. Okay, now moving on to cryptos, my last one of the day. Okay, let's talk a little bit about Bitcoin. Again, you know, this is not financial advice. I'm just talking through my ideas, how I would approach this, and you know, think of it as market discourse, things you can chew on. So we had a really good bounce off these previous lows. Nice to see it correct. You know, it needed to do it. It's very rare to see something go through you know, second bubble so quickly. And you can see it's certainly slowing down. So the selling is dying off, which is great, which means buyers are potentially coming back in, or certainly sellers are kind of stepping out. So that's all a good sign. This is just a garbage at this point. Now it's a bit of a mess. So what that means is that it's fair value. Okay, there's you know, roughly speaking, an equal number of buyers, bulls and bears in this, buyers and sellers, and nobody really has any fixed opinion. And you know, possibly, you know, the movers and shakers have left, and now it's just kind of drifting, and you know, we'll see what happens. So this is what I'm looking at. Excuse me. So I'm looking to see if we do dip below 30,000. So if we do, then we would accelerate. I would expect that we would accelerate potentially and head back down towards 20,000. That's not really my immediate expectation, but there is a bit of a bunching up happening here, and this is potentially going to lead to a bit of a significant move. Again, you can see smaller candles starting to come in, and I want to see what happens with this. So what I wouldn't be surprised to see is if the market starts to just slowly drip down. What would be interesting to me is, yeah, I can see big rejections, immediate rejections, but then we're still coming down, rejections. So we've got another low and then another one immediately. which means that, you know, the bears are still testing fresh lows and they're pretty much in control there. What I would be interested to see is full-bodied candles closing lower, so without a rejection, if that happened. So now there's bodies like this closing lower, coming down towards 30,000 without being pushed back, not enough buyers, would potentially see that the market's going to break lower. And if it does, then it will obviously move quite significantly. Alternatively, I want to see if we can hold above that 30,000 level and start to break above these highs, then we start to become more bullish. I don't think I'm going to be I would not be actively a buyer until we get back over 40,000 at this point in time. There's just not enough evidence to support that. I need to see a nice bullish monthly candle. And so I'll have to see where we are by the end of the month. Okay, Ethereum. Again, also here, not looking super bullish. There's certainly buyers above this level. It's just not enough really above that to go any higher. And that monthly would do well, again, I think, to come back down below 2,000 and shed a little bit of weight. I'd be happy for it to do that. And that can still happen. It's not just because it's holding now, it doesn't mean it'll hold indefinitely. Yeah, again, Cardano, you can see there's always been buyers in this area going back for quite a while, certainly going back into March. Yeah, but again, coming down to the one level, I'd be okay with that. Dogecoin, again, you can see that break below, solid push through, and then finds resistance, tries again, finds resistance, and starts to head a little bit lower. So a lot of this is hinting at there's plenty of buyers here, lots of buyers here, but it's also possible that it's just going to keep giving back and giving back and giving back until it kind of comes back down to fair value. So we're cryptos in a bubble, of course they were. Are they here to stay? I think they are. And again, that's just it's just obviously my personal opinion. I know why they came into being in the first place, and I don't think that need has gone away. But yes, do I think that they had a big bubble and they were overvalued? Absolutely. But it's okay. I mean, it happens with gold. It's happened with other commodities in our lifetime. It'll always happen going forwards. And again, this is an area where I think we could head down a little bit lower, and then finishing off with Ripple being the last one, we're back in true value. So when I look at a few of the others that have had a really big correction, to me, there's not much more. They're closer to true value now, and I don't really expect them to fall much further because I think that they're reaching their true value. I think they were overvalued, and then they're now back in with true value. And the more popular ones, such as Bitcoin and Ethereum, for example, they could do with shedding a bit more weight. They're still carrying a little bit too much. I'd be okay with that. If they came back down further, that would be fantastic. But if they slow down where they are now, they're kind of in that area and tread water until they kind of reach true value in a couple of months, that'll be fine. So overall, I'm optimistic about it. And yes, I don't expect to see any changes over the next week that are hugely significant, or if they are, I'll be the first one to point them out. But yeah, I'm still expecting the possibility here that these could creep a little bit lower, despite the fact that there are plenty of buyers in this area. So there we go, ladies and gents. That is my list for the week. I hope that you have a fantastic week. There are some opportunities, and hopefully the markets sort themselves out. Yep, then looking forward to being productive and making some decent trades. Thank you very much. Have a good one.